Does Pokemon need to be open world? I've wondered this question for quite a while, ever since Scarlet Violet came out. Actually, quite a while before that. More so like when Sword and Shield came out, with the new wild area, which really took us to a new world of Pokemon that we hadn't seen yet before. While I didn't enjoy it as much in the base Sword and Shield games, in the DLC I really had a lot of fun with it, and they basically did a rocket blast into Legends Arceus, which completely blew my expectations out of the water with how well the open world system was implemented, or more specifically the open zone system was implemented. And it did seem like this was the right step for Pokemon. We were really going on the right path now. And then Scarlet and Violet was announced to be the very first open world Pokemon game, fully open world Pokemon game. And I was excited. This is when I started my YouTube channel and I was making quite a few videos on it, and I was really excited to explore this new region. And then the games actually came out, and while I enjoyed it, I felt like the creativity and the formula could not compare as well to Legends Arceus, which I felt did a much better job. And so I sort of wondered, is this the direction for Pokemon? Is open world really where we should be going? Or should we rather stick with what Legends Arceus did and go for a more open zone approach? But I mean, think about it this way. Was Pokemon Legends Arceus fun because it was not open world and rather open zone? Well, half and half. Its formula did rely on the open zone, being that you go from one area to the next area. It could have also benefited from just being able to take whichever story you want in whatever order, and maybe just keeping Mount Coronet closed off. And with Scarlet and Violet, could it have benefited from an open zone approach? I don't think so. I don't think it really would have made much of a difference. Really what I think was lacking was its creativity in what actually is in the world. It was pretty much just mountains and grassy fields and just plain scenery that didn't really leave much of an impression and wasn't that much fun to explore. But at the same time, Legends Arceus sort of did the same, so what was the difference? Well, Legends Arceus did take a different approach, as there was a lot more interactability with the land, and I think that's what really made the difference for me. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, it's a huge open world with bland sceneries, but while it may be bland, it doesn't mean that the game actually has to be bland, right? Like with Legends Arceus, scenery on the surface, it was pretty basic. I think we could agree on that. But in Legends Arceus, you can actually interact with the land. In Scarlet and Violet, you're just sort of roaming it, and in Legend Arceus, you are constantly avoiding Pokemon and you are trying to catch Pokemon in real time, while in Scarlet and Violet, you could sort of just throw a Pokeball and either battle them or catch them, but the sneaking system wasn't so well implemented, and you didn't really have to put much effort into doing anything. You could really just do it mindlessly, while in Legend Arceus, you normally have to put in at least a little bit of thought. But this is really getting into game design. So how does this tie into being an open world game? Should Pokemon be an open world or not? Well, I don't really think that matters. As long as they implement something a bit more engaging, then it makes the open world more engaging, and so it doesn't need to rely on an open zone game, let alone a linear one. And what I would say the DLC for Sword and Shield did good was actually having pretty unique sceneries and it being pretty fresh. So it really just seems that Scarlet and Violet was just pretty barren and it needed more things to do. Which I would say the Indigo Disc did fix quite a bit. They at the very least made more interesting things to look at, and so I enjoyed exploring simply for the sake of exploring. I felt like there was a lot more creativity put into the landmasses, which is engaging enough on its own. And I could only imagine how much more engaging it would have been if they put more into the gameplay loop. And I would say the most engaging part of it for me was the synchro machine. And that's because number one, it was new and fresh, but also there was something new and engaging to do. You were battling live and in a Pokemon, meaning in order to complement an open world game, you need to also have a gameplay feature that goes along with it. In Sword and Shield, this was the uniqueness and newness of it all. In Legends Arceus, it was the constant awareness of the Pokemon around you, never having nothing to do. In Scarlet and Violet's DLC, it was the newness of the synchro machine and the interesting places to explore. And in Scarlet and Violet's base game, it wasn't really much. Now, obviously, there are the basics like catching Pokemon and stuff, so it definitely, it wasn't like actually boring. It was still pretty fun. It just wasn't as fun as I think it could have been. But perhaps you disagree with me and think that Scarlet and Violet's base open world part of the game was actually a blast. And I'd love to hear that opinion, because I love it when people enjoy things. So should Pokemon be open world or not? Well, I really think that depends on whether or not they're willing to add a few extra little spices onto the main game. Otherwise, if they're more comfortable with controlled settings where they have a better idea of where the player is going to go, therefore being able to implement new features a lot more easily, then it would be an open zone game that would be most beneficial for them. In any case, I'm excited to see the future of Pokemon, and it definitely seems like they're going to be going into the open world route. Even Pokemon Legends ZA seems to be taking that approach because it's just in one big city, Lumio City, but perhaps there will be sections, which would also make sense. So let me know what you think. Do you think Pokemon should be open world? What do you think of my analysis? this? Let me know. And if you want to hear my analysis on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's open world design, check out this video. Thank you and have a great day. Bye!